What's up, everyone? Welcome back to C&D Sports. The NHL season is here, and we have our official season preview here to get you set for what should be an exciting NHL season this year. So we're going to start off. We've got some power rankings for you. We have our individual divisional power rankings. All four of those videos are out now, and those ones go into more in-depth look at the teams specifically. So if you want individual analysis on the teams, go check out those. This is going to be a sort of quick 32 to 1 power ranking here, just going league wide. And then we'll go into our Stanley Cup predictions here. We'll go into our awards predictions here individually for players and coaches.
All right, so yeah, let's just get right into it. The battle for Bedard, I feel, is between, or at least the battle for 32, because there is a draft lottery. It's between two teams, Chicago Blackhawks and the Arizona Coyotes. Blackhawks at 32, Arizona Coyotes at 31.
The expectation is clear in Arizona. It's been clear. They've had the same sort of locker room environment year after year, where Chicago, this is the first year of their 5-year plan. It's the first year without a Stan Bowman run team here. So this is now a new vision Blackhawks, and not all the guys are necessarily on board, specifically guys like Taves, who's been pretty critical about the 5-year plan, saying it's something that he doesn't want to be a part of. So that's the type of thing, whereas everyone knows the expectations in Arizona, it's going to take some getting used to in Chicago.
Exactly. Then at 30, we have the Philadelphia Flyers, and this is tough because John Tortorella is in there, and I just want to highlight one thing when it comes to Philly is we harped on their blue line, but that blue line does have a lot of talent. So if anybody is going to fill out their games as individuals, it would be Tortorella.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mind the blue line the way it is now. Not that it'll work in the future, but this is still a very bad team.
Yeah, a bad team that's lost a fair amount of guys over the past few years. So,
yes. Then we have Montreal, and this is a team that shouldn't be as bad as they were last year when you consider that literally everything that could have gone wrong for them did.
I think there's more of a vision to Montreal now. I think last year was just trying to get their footing and knowing what they are. I think they know what they are. It's a matter of just getting up to the ability to be what they are and having young guys get up to their potential. And it's going to take some time. And I mean, obviously, it stings a little bit for Habs fans, considering that they went from going on that Cinderella run to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2020 to then, coming right back down to earth in 2021 and then coming basically crashing right back down to earth as far as you can go to just number one overall pick, who will be exciting with Slafkovsky. And that's part of the vision that will take a couple years to get into.
Yeah, and it was a hostile takeover between Bergevin's boys and Kent Hughes' guys. So again, it'll be another season of progression for them. At 28, this is where it gets tough because from here on out, we're going to name some really good teams. But not everybody can make the playoffs. Not everybody can be competitive. We're going to kick off 28 with the Anaheim Ducks because like we said when we spoke of them earlier, this is a team that is still looking to rebuild. If they weren't, they would have kept Lindholm. They would have kept Manson on their blue line. So this is a team that outside of John Gibson, all their players are young and looking forward to a bright future.
Mm-hmm.
At 27, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I feel like we're sleeping on them, to be honest, but at the same time, I feel their roster's thin. Despite the addition of guys like Gaudreau and Goodbranson, there isn't much there to look forward to, I feel, in terms of them being competitive.
Right.
At 26, we have the San Jose Sharks, and this is another team that just, their identity is very weird. They should be rebuilding, but they have way too many vets that they can't move because they're all on terrible contracts. When you think of guys like Erik Karlsson, Marc-Edouard Vlasic, and Logan Couture too.
And then you have guys that you'd think would be too talented for San Jose with Thomas Hertl and with Timo Meier. And so it's just a mix of, you have guys on expensive deals that you can't move and you don't want there. guys that are expensive deals that you do want there and that are probably too good for this team. And then everyone in between, it's really just a smorgasbord of I don't know what. It's confusing. They're confusing. They have talent, but they're confusing.
And that will result with them being in this range. 25, we have the Seattle Kraken. And this is another season of development for them. They have a lot of depth, whether it's their forward group, whether it's their defensive group. Hopefully, there's a bounce back when it comes to their tandem in net. Like Grubauer can't be that bad. That this is a guy that was looking like a Vezina candidate a season ago. So I expect some progression.
I like the additions they made last year, and I love the additions that they made this year with guys like Burakovsky. And I think now that you're going to have Matty Beniers and possibly Shane Wright also infused in this lineup, there's a lot to be excited about in Seattle. It's going to be a slow build. You know, not everyone can be the Vegas Golden Knights.
But it's going to be a fun build.
It's going to be a fun build. Seattle's going to be a fun team, but fun teams don't always make the playoffs.
Fair enough. At 24, this is tough. Boston's been good for a while, but the injuries and the aging and just everything coming at them at once, I don't have much hope for them going into this season outside of their tandem. But I mean, go ahead.
I think this is the year that, you know, year after year we say, oh, this is the year that age and injury is going to catch up to Boston, and year after year they exceed expectations. I mean, I've said it the past few years, but I still think this is going to be the year that it really happens to Boston, because it's the first year that, you know, one of the big, you know, the big two with Marchand and Pasternak that they've relied on to be there when guys like Bergeron have been out. This is the first year that Marchand's not there and Bergeron's only getting older. So it really is just Pasternak, and can he do it on his own? Remains to be seen. He hasn't had to yet. So I would say no, but.
And this is the first time they haven't had a true number one defenseman on the blue line, whether it be Chara, whether it be McAvoy. They're very thin there. So the star power's gone, and the depth has never really been there to pick up the slack.
Yeah.
And now I think it's going to show. Anyways, at 23, we have the Dallas Stars, and it's tough to put them here because they are coming off of a playoff run, but this is a playoff run where they barely squeaked in, and teams in the NHL are getting better, and Dallas did nothing to be in that category, and they weren't a team that was so dominant that they could handle losses to guys like John Klingberg. So I think it's going to be a tough season for Dallas. Can they work some magic and have a good season? I think they'll play a lot of quality games because they do have a lot of talent and guys that can eat good minutes. But I just don't think they have the star power outside of Robertson, who still doesn't have a contract. So if Robertson's on that team, it's that much worse for them.
Yeah.
At 22, we have the Islanders, and we went into it when we talked about them in our divisional video. This is a good team that went to the conference finals in back-to-back years. But that season off last year where they went through so many injuries, they missed a lot of opportunities to continue to develop in an NHL that is getting better and that is growing in parity. And I think that's what hurts them above everything else. And they didn't really do anything to improve their team. So when it comes to progression, is they need another God mode season from Sorokin. They need a healthy season from their team as a whole. And outside of that, I'm not sure how much better it gets. Outside of Barzal, I don't see how much better their players can get.
Right.
So this isn't necessarily regression. I just think the rest of the NHL has gotten better. And at 21, we have a team that is going to get better within their division. That's the New Jersey Devils. They're young, they're talented. And again, another team that just needs to be healthy, especially looking at guys like Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier and Dougie Hamilton. As long as these core guys are healthy, I think there's going to be another big season of progression. And this is where you start to get into teams that are going to steal playoff spots if they become available. At 20, we have the bottom of the Atlantic just slog that division's going to be. It's the Buffalo Sabres. And this is a team that in a lot of ways we're expecting progression because they are a young team, but the tandem's just weak.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll hurt them. But overall, I expect them to have a similar season in which they had last year, maybe with a slight upward trend, but with the Atlantic being so strong, that may steal some wins from them.
Yeah.
One of their Atlantic foes going to be the Ottawa Senators. That's who we have at 19. And obviously, Ottawa should improve. I don't see any way that they don't. Their tandem should be stronger. Their defense core should be stronger. Their forward group should be much stronger. But they're still a young team and they're still looking to develop guys to be less thin. So at whichever point it clicks, that's when you can expect a competitive Ottawa Senators, but I don't think it's this season yet.
Despite the summer of Pierre, I think it's going to take a few summers of Pierre to really develop this team to get it to where it needs to be, where we can say that this is a shoe-in for the wild card, a shoe-in for a top 3 spot in the Atlantic, which I think the Senators will get to. I think they have the pieces and the potential to be that. I just don't think this is the year that it happens.
Well, two things is for them to be a top 3 team, that means they have to take out one of Tampa Bay, Toronto, or Florida, which is possible and it will happen at some point. Tampa Bay and even Toronto, they may not be elite teams forever. The other thing is Pierre's job, in my opinion, is done. It's just a matter of him maintaining this team.
Yeah.
It's up to DJ Smith to get this team going now.
Mm-hmm.
At 18, we have the Winnipeg Jets. Another tough team to kind of gauge where they at. They have all the talent in the world to honestly compete. But it's a matter of everything clicking and how bad is the decline of Blake Wheeler going to be, especially with him not being the captain and that culture shift they're looking towards, who fits and who doesn't. This is a boom or bust season for Winnipeg because if they can't make a playoff push, they have to sell, don't they?
I think so, because you've already we've already mentioned that in the offseason that Mark Scheifele is, he's been on the block of whether he's going to stay. And then they've already, Pierre-Luc Dubois is another guy that he kind of wants to be on the way out here. He's eyeing a move to Montreal. So Winnipeg is a team of everyone has to buy in for this team to be where they should be and where they have been in years past. And I don't know if they have that buy-in right now. They certainly have the skill to be a lot better than, 18 on a 32 team power ranking, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of question marks around Connor Hellebuyck too. He had a bad year last year. Is Connor Hellebuyck going to be that, Vezina caliber goalie that, it was almost there's a few goalies in the league that you go in, you just feel confident that we're not going to lose because of him. And Connor Hellebuyck was one of those guys before, and last year it wasn't the case. So I think that's probably, we've mentioned Dubois, we've mentioned Scheifele. Those have been talked about throughout the offseason. I don't think enough people are talking about Connor Hellebuyck as well, as I think that's a huge question mark of whether he can get back to where he was before.
Exactly. Well, let's move on to 17. That's where we have the Washington Capitals. And this is for two reasons. Like Boston, they're going through some injury trouble with Tom Wilson and Nick Backstrom being out to start the season. But this is still a very deep team, a very good, very talented team. So we'll keep them a little higher. But if there's a slow start or if more injuries start to pile up, this is a team that will quickly drop off, especially when you consider age, which can hit at any point. A team we're expecting a big jump from are the Detroit Red Wings. And this is a team I feel at times is overrated because it is the Stevie Wyatt factor, but they've proven themselves to be a stable rebuilder for a couple years now.
Yeah.
And I think this is a season, especially considering their off-season moves, this is a season where they brought in more stability and more talent, which pushes them into a playoff-looking team.
Yeah, this is a team that, if it stands right now, and this is what standings were breaking down, I think this is the team that gets that last wild card spot. I picked, we've picked them over Washington, and I feel pretty comfortable picking Detroit over Washington right now because I think there is more cohesiveness, and that just comes with the fact that they are healthier than Washington, they are younger than Washington, and they have a little bit more of an image than a team like Washington. So
Definitely. At 15, like Washington, this is another team with age. It's the Pittsburgh Penguins. So if those injuries start to pile up, this is another team that can drop off quickly. But the talent's there. And like I said in the preview, I trust Ron Hextall and what he sees in this team. And I feel he's done a good job to fill them out. It's just a matter of that big three in Malkin, Crosby, and Letang staying healthy and the guys around them supporting them like they can.
Yeah, I agree.
At 14, we have the Vegas Golden Knights, and this is another tough team because they went through a lot of injuries. But last season, they were able to eat it. It was really just the transition of having Jack Eichel and all those moves that kind of pulled them out of the playoffs because I think it was just too much at once, along with all the injuries they went through. And now, if they have another injury riddled season, I don't feel they have the depth to replace, especially if it's to a mainstay like a Mark Stone or a Jack Eichel. It's going to be tough on the forward group. Their defense, I still feel, is pretty nasty. But then you look at their goaltending, it's going to be tough without Robin Lehner, who is an elite goaltender when he's on his game. Who are they going to use in net? The starting position and even the backup position, it's up for grabs. So Vegas is going to be a tough team. They have a lot of personality. They have a lot of players. What are they going to do?
Can't wait to see Phil in Vegas.
At 13, we have the LA Kings, and this does on paper especially look very high, but they've done nothing to regress. And I feel like this is a team on the forward group. They have tons of depth and they have tons of options. Defensively, again, depth and options. Goaltending wise, a lot rides on Cal Peterson and his ability to start more games because Jonathan Quick is aging.
Yep, not getting any younger.
Yeah, you have no idea when that drop off's going to happen or if an injury happens, and Cal Peterson has to be ready to step up. If not, at some point transition into being the starter because he's getting paid starter money. Yep. And I mean, I'm never going to bet against best hands in the league, Kevin Fiala. So
best hands in the league, Kevin Fiala. And I mean, I will add that this is the same team that took the Edmonton Oilers, who a lot of people view very highly and rightfully so, took them to 7 games and were very close to knocking them out.
Without Drew Doughty.
Without Drew Doughty. Now that Drew Doughty's back in the fold and everyone's a year older here, especially young guys like Quinton Byfield, this is going to be a team that I think is now a mainstay in that Pacific Division to lock up one of those top 3 spots year in and year out. Obviously, there's some other teams that are going to make some noise that we're going to get to, but this is one of those teams in that top 3 conversation that should rightfully be there.
Another one of those teams we're taking a bet on are the Vancouver Canucks. That's who we have at 12.
And this is a lot more of a bet than the LA Kings. The LA Kings have done it. They got that 3rd spot in the Pacific last year. This is a Vancouver team that year in and year out, seemingly since they made that finals in 2011, after winning the President's Trophy, they've just kind of fallen short of expectations ever since. Gradually, of course, they did make the playoffs in, years after that, but it's been a while since they've been to the playoffs, and they haven't really given us a reason to put them this high in the past, but they're a team that is worth taking a shot because they're so talented.
And I'm riding the Bruce Boudreau train. I mean, once he took over, this team was a playoff team.
The Bruce bus.
They just had a very rough start with Travis Green. But I think there's stability. I think there's talent. I think there's cohesion. I think there's a desire to win. The only thing I don't like about this team is that OEL contract, but even OEL is looking like a top 4 defenseman again.
Yep.
And I think that's going to be good for this team going forward. I think playoffs. I think they're ready for it.
Yep.
At 11, we have the St. Louis Blues, and this is a team that year in, year out, they're just solid. This is the last year of Ryan O'Reilly, so they're going to have to make a push before they go through a transition.
Yep.
And a potential retooling, because that is a big part of what this team does.
You always kind of know what you're going to get out of St. Louis, and it'll be, I think, the biggest question mark. There's not a whole lot of question marks to this team, but it is in net. Mm-hmm. And it's Jordan Binnington lost the job to Billy Huso, and then throughout the playoffs, they were bouncing back and forth. And now they've gone back to Binnington. Huso's in Detroit. I think that's a huge addition for Detroit, and I think it's a huge loss for St. Louis if Binnington doesn't perform like we've seen him. This is a guy that's won a cup in the past. So Jordan Binnington he's a guy that you can bet on. Do you feel comfortable betting on him? Obviously, St. Louis does. That could be what pushes them further down this list. It's probably what's keeping them outside of the top 10 as a team that, since they won everything in 2019 has I'd safely say that a lot of power rankings would have them in the top 10 because of how consistent they are and because of how talented they are. But I think we've seen what can happen to a guy like Jordan Binnington, and now there is no safety net. It's his crease now, and that's their biggest question mark this year.
You don't believe in a Thomas Greiss resurgence? Fair enough. Let's move on to our top 10. We have the Minnesota Wild kicking it off for us. And this is a team I have a lot of faith in because Dean Evason's a phenomenal coach. I think he proved last year that he's one of the premier coaches in this league.
Oh, for sure.
But you lose best hands in the league, Kevin Fiala. And I mean,
it's tough to rebound from.
And that's not the biggest of deals, is they still fill out the roster pretty well. My issue right now is in net. I don't feel they have a safety net. They have Gustafsson and they have Fleury, but man, like it can get really shaky real quick for them.
Fleury is not a young man anymore. So, last year they've had that in the past. They've had Cam Talbot when Fleury came in, and when it was Cam Talbot's crease, they had Kakkonen. Gustafsson is that guy, although he had a solid year in Ottawa last year. I think he's more suited for a backup role here, but that's the big issue. It's going to be a backup role for Fleury, who's not a young man anymore. This is a 37, 38-year-old keeper now that is going to have to play starting minutes when it really should be time for him to platoon. And you've lost Talbot, you've lost Kakkonen. So is Gustafsson going to be that guy that can fill the role if Fleury goes down injured, or if Fleury just ages and isn't as good as he has been in the past? He's a former Vezina winner. Can he regain that form? That's going to be crucial for Minnesota if they really want to make a push like we felt that they could make a Stanley Cup push last year. I think this team has regressed a little bit from that form based on who's ahead of them in the Central. But yeah, I think there's a lot of questions around Minnesota, but there's a lot to get excited about when you have guys like Kirill Kaprizov leading the squad and that deep blue line they have.
And looking ahead to see who we have, I feel at 9, the Nashville Predators within the Central, there's no question that they're the only team that progressed. But looking ahead, this may be the only team in our top 10 that's gotten better this offseason.
I agree.
So you have Soros, and they just have a bevy of goalies that can back him up. It's going to be great. Defensively, you bring in Ryan McDonough. That is huge for this team.
Huge deal.
I mean, Nashville's always had great defense, and now it's that much better.
Yep.
And then on the forward group, they're bringing back that depth, and they're bringing Nino Niederreiter to help fill them out. So they have a lot of options. They have a lot of looks. They have a lot of guys that can play quality minutes. So Nashville's a team that's not going to make a lot of mistakes, and they still have the talent in guys like Philip Forsberg. Hopefully Matt Duchene can make some magic happen along with Ryan Johansson. It's a good looking team. I don't expect Josi, Duchene, and Forsberg to have as great of a season as they had last year, but I feel like they filled out their depth, and that will help pick up the slack of, Roman Josi likely coming down from 96 points, because that's tough. But if he does it again, great.
Yeah.
At 8, we have the Florida Panthers. And you lose arguably your best forward in Jonathan Huberdeau, and at points your number one defenseman in Mackenzie Weegar when Aaron Ekblad goes down.
Plus a myriad of depth as well.
Yeah. This roster does look thin. They did a good job filling it out, and it's definitely a new look for Florida, but I think this is a team that, as talented as they are, they're going to have to develop before they make another run at a cup, which they didn't even do this year. So that rebuild or retool, it's warranted, but it hurts them when it comes to these rankings. 7, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs, and well, I mean, regular season, yeah, we know what we're going to get. Well, this year, maybe not. That goaltending tandem, it's different. Their forward group has a lot of injuries. Their blue line has a lot of injuries. So it's going to be a shaky start with all the changes and all the injuries. But it's Toronto. I think they're going to stabilize and make another good regular season performance. But playoff time, that's where you're looking to see some success out of them. And that's the story for the rest of the teams going forward is the Carolina Hurricanes at 6, another team that I feel we've had a lot of expectation out of, and they haven't met it really since making the conference finals. They haven't done much since 2019. So I'm a little hesitant to have them higher, especially they lost quite a bit. They bring in Brent Burns, but they're missing Pacioretty for a long time.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting season. The winners of the offseason, though, the Calgary Flames. I mean, Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, Nazem Kadri. Yes, you lose Tkachuk, but still.
You lose Tkachuk, you lose Gaudreau, and somehow this team still looks better.
Oh, yeah, they lost Gaudreau. I forgot about that. But
yeah.
Great team. This is a Daryl Sutter team. They're solid at every position. They have a sweet tandem, great defense core, great forward core. One thing I like about Carolina, they don't really have, one thing I like about Calgary is they don't have a clear-cut superstar on this team, and I think that works well for them because night in, night out, you're going to have different guys contributing, which makes them a very tough team to play against.
Mm-hmm.
At 4, we have the Edmonton Oilers. It's Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. They'll go as far as those guys take them. I feel like we said in our preview that this is the first time they have a legitimate top 6 and some depth in that team. You do want a little more out of that blue line. Bringing in Jack Campbell, I feel like that's a great option at starter.
Yeah. Much better than the Smith, Koskinen, and Skinner trio that they were putting out last year. I think you definitely get some stability in Jack Campbell. And Jack Campbell's in a place where I think he feels valued, and I think that'll go a long way into how he plays.
At 3, we have the New York Rangers, and man, this team is going to be scary this year. I don't see any flaws, and on top of their flawless lineup, they have a lot of talent. And this goes beyond Shesterkin. You have Panarin, you have Zibanejad, you have Kreider. Then you have the kid line. You bring in Vinny Trocheck. Their blue line has Adam Fox. They have Keandre Miller, Jacob Trouba. It's a great team.
It is a great team.
And then, of course, you have arguably the best goalie in the NHL, Igor Shesterkin. So it's going to be a great season for New York. At 2, we have Tampa. And age is really the only age and the amount of games played. That's really going to be the only thing that can hold this team back, but they've shown no signs of slowing down. If you go back to our video, you'll see that their forward group is just filthy. Defensively, yeah, it's thinner without McDonough, but it's still a great group. Andrei Vasilevsky is Andrei Vasilevsky.
Vazzy's Vazzy.
At 1, really the only major loss here is Nazem Kadri, but I feel like they filled that loss out with numbers when you bring in guys like Rodriguez and the rest of the moves they made. Colorado's a great team, and I mean, man, that defense core going into this season, especially if Sam Girard and the rest of the guys are healthy, it's going to be scary to go up against. And Nate McKinnon, he's going to be a rich man next year. I think this is a season where they have to go for it again before that contract kicks in and makes their cap situation tight.
So there you have it. Those are our power rankings from 1 to 32. We'll move into awards now, and we'll move into our Stanley Cup prediction here, because I think there definitely is a clean transition here on who we have winning the Stanley Cup for the 2022-2023 season.
Well, obviously, if we have Colorado ranked number 1 in our power rankings, we're going to have them as our cup winners. They're a great team. They didn't really lose much. And yes, Kadri's a huge loss, but I feel like they're going to eat that. And they're bringing in Gerard, who's going to be healthy. Well, they're not bringing him in. He's returning. So
Yeah.
they may even be better this season, which that's just a scary look.
Yeah.
We have them beating the Carolina Hurricanes, who have been disappointing, but this is a year where I feel like they can make that jump into a deep playoff run again.
So it was really tough to pick between Carolina and New York, as if they weren't in the same division, we'd say that this would be, an ideal conference finals, because I do think that they'll be the two of the three best teams with Tampa Bay, but I think they're the two most poised to go on deep runs, considering Tampa's been there for 3 years straight. I don't think Tampa has a fourth cup final in a row there. Maybe they'll end up like the Golden State Warriors here and, run it back again. But I think I don't know. I don't want to discount Tampa, but I think Carolina, I just give them the edge over New York, because
that's who we have as our President's Trophy winning team. And well, we all know those teams tend not to make deep playoff runs. And I feel like they're going to exhaust themselves this regular season.
Mm-hmm.
New York plays a very hard game.
Yeah.
And at some point it wears on you. And as for Carolina, again, this is a team that's going to make a jump, we feel.
Yeah.
But let's move on to our individual awards. We'll kick it off with the Jack Adams. And if Nashville has the season we think they'll have, though they won't be among the elite, I think they're going to exceed expectations. And that places John Hynes as our Jack Adams. And that's a very unorthodox pick, because he's not the biggest of names. Nashville isn't the biggest of teams, but I think it's an interesting take.
Yeah, with what he has to work with and the job that he's already done and the projection that we have for Nashville being the team that finishes just below Colorado in the Central, I think John Hynes will be a huge part of that in really coaching up this very deep team and really getting creative with it. And I think that's what's going to propel John Hynes to the top of the Jack Adams mountain here.
Yeah, and for Conn Smythe, if the Avalanche win another cup, I think it'll be likely that MacKinnon plays a big role, especially just considering the competitor that he is. He's not a selfish player by any means, so he's not going to want to outperform a guy like Cale Makar to win, but I think he just has that dog in him.
And he has his cup, he has his contract. What else is he going to be playing for now? He's going to be playing to prove that he's worth being the highest paid guy in the NHL right now. And I think this is the season that he is this guy. There's some future contracts that are coming up, or some future contracts that'll need to be paid out to other stars in the league in the coming off seasons. But as of right now, he's the top dog. And it's just a matter of, is he going to go out and prove that he's the top dog? And I think this is the season to do it. So if they go on that cup run that we think they're going to do again and go back to back, I think it's his Conn Smythe to lose.
Exactly. For the Richard with, Jack Eichel as your center, I don't see how Phil Kessel doesn't win it.
This is the year that I think he finally gets to 40 goals. And of course we are kidding, because it's going to be Austin Matthews.
Yes.
He's the best goal scorer. He pot 60 last year.
He could have pot 70.
He could have if he didn't get injured, which is scary. I still have a tough time predicting a guy to put up back-to-back 60-goal seasons. But if someone is going to do it, it's going to be Austin Matthews. I certainly don't think it's out of the question. I think he's probably more within that 55-goal range this year. And to say that that's a letdown, it's not. 55 goals is still incredible. But I'd say around 55 would probably be a safe kind of over-under if you wanted to put a betting line on it. I think 55 goals is what I put Austin Matthews at, which I think will be more than enough to get him the Rocket Richard again this year.
And we've been on Ovi watch, and as we should be. This isn't Ovi's trophy to win anymore, but I just want to say Austin Matthews is scoring at a clip greater than Alex Ovechkin.
And Alex Ovechkin is on watch to break Gretzky's goal record within the next few years. So whether he can do that, it may not hold. Ovechkin's record may not hold for much longer if Austin Matthews is scoring at this rate at the young age that he's at right now.
Exactly. And like Austin Matthews being a shoo-in for the Richard, Connor McDavid. I mean, the Art Ross is his trophy to lose. I don't even see competition outside of a healthy Kucherov because he was the last one to do it. But it's Connor McDavid.
It's Connor McDavid. If you're going to talk about who's going to score the most points in the league, then I mean, Connor McDavid lives to score points. That guy has incredible vision. You know, he's going to rack up the assists there. And when you have guys like Draisaitl who can pot goals for you, when you have guys like Nugent Hopkins around you, Kyler Yamamoto, I'm sure I'm missing someone here.
Evander Kane.
Evander Kane. Their depth is just that much better.
Did you say Zach Hyman? Better depth.
Didn't even say Zach Hyman either.
Jesse Puljujarvi when he gets signed, if he gets signed.
This is the first time that I feel that Connor McDavid, and that we feel that Connor McDavid actually has proper depth around him and Draisaitl, and that's only going to elevate their point scoring, especially Connor McDavid, who lives to be that playmaker that will provide goals for guys like Evander Kane, who was scoring at like a 40-goal clip last year.
Yeah, it's going to be a great season for Edmonton. Selke, we have an unorthodox pick. It's a guy who hasn't won it, but he was a nominee last year. That's Elias Lindholm, and I feel like he's in for a great season with Calgary because now he is in another position where he's a top 3 option, but I think he can edge out Kadri and be that second best player behind Huberdeau. Really, the only reason I don't see him winning it is if he scores too many goals or if he gets too many points, because for whatever reason, the Selke voters don't like that.
That's why Barkov should have more by now, but...
Exactly. But I think Lindholm's got it in him. I think Calgary's going to be, it's a different look in Calgary. I think they're going to be especially more defensive based off the moves they made this offseason. That bodes well for Lindholm winning a Selke.
Yeah.
But it may be a repeat of a guy like Stone or Barkov, but we'll see. Calder is another tough one because I feel like to some degree we're going against the grain. A lot of guys are saying Mason McTavish, and he very well could. But Matty Beniers was the best rookie last season. When he came in, it was just a seamless transition. And hopefully he hasn't peaked too early because that'll result in obviously him not winning the Calder. But if he can continue to progress, I think by a landslide, Matty Beniers is poised to win this trophy.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. But it could be a Cole Caulfield situation where he has that crazy run, but they just don't work out the following season. And that's where Mason McTavish or even an Owen Powers can step in and steal that trophy. But for me right now, I'm going to take the bet on Beniers.
Yeah.
Vezna's another tough one. You're always going to look at a guy like Shesterkin, and you should. He is the best goalie in the NHL. But if Calgary has the season we think they're going to have, I think Jacob Markstrom's the guy in the pipes that's going to outshine all these guys, at least in the regular season.
And I think Shesterkin put up such a pace last year, you know, being nominated for the Hart as well, which is usually pretty hard for a goalie to be nominated for. I think we have seen, I don't want to say peak because I think Shesterkin I think he's only going to get better, but I think he made such a huge step last year that even incremental steps won't be viewed as much of a progression as they should be. So I think that'll play against him. Whereas I think Jacob Markstrom, even though I'm almost positive he was a finalist for it last year, I think Jacob Markstrom will take an even bigger step, probably similar to the step we saw from Shesterkin. And I think Jacob Markstrom, I think now that he has that, especially added the addition of Weegar, I think really helps that blue line and will only help his goaltending numbers moving forward. I think he just has the right team around him that I think, you know, the stars are aligning for Jacob Markstrom to take home the Vezina.
For James Norris, this is another wild pick, in my opinion, because you have a guy like Cale Makar, who's the clear-cut front runner. Then you have guys like Adam Fox and Roman Josi, who are all great defensemen that do it well on both ends of the ice. I'm going Aaron Ekblad because I feel like that opportunity, especially without Huberdeau, is there for him to rack up some assist.
Yeah.
Obviously, this bodes on him being healthy, but I mean, again, if he's not, then this obviously would change our pick. But I believe in Aaron Ekblad. I believe in what he can do for Florida this season. He's going to play a much larger role. And ending it off, we'll give you our Ted Lindsay and Hart Memorial because it's pretty much the same award as long as the player that wins it makes the playoffs. It's Connor McDavid. I'm never going to bet against him. Maybe it could be Austin Matthews considering his defensive game, but
He did it last year. Matthews did it last year too, but McDavid's McDavid. It's really hard to pick against him, when we're talking about awards that are quite literally awarded to the best player in the league and the most valuable player in the league. I don't think you can find a more valuable player, a more valuable piece to the league as a whole than Connor McDavid. So with that, that'll do it for our complete league power rankings, our awards predictions, our overall season preview as the NHL season is finally back. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, give it a like down below. Subscribe so you don't miss any of our other uploads. Comment down below what your thoughts are on our power rankings, what you think of our awards picks. Let us know your power rankings. Let us know your award picks in the comments below. We'd love to hear them as always. And with that, happy NHL season. We'll see you in the next video.